Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode 284. It is Monday, March 4th as we record. I'm David Lotz. Joining me this episode is Bobby Jackson.
Hey, what's up?
Yasha Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
And Michelle Hillard.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
All four of us.
It always feels like a super long time if all four of us aren't on. And it may not have been super long, but it feels like it's been a long time.
I think this time it has been a long time.
I think it's been a decent amount, and then we skipped last weekend because of the Oscars. So I think between that plus the skipping makes it feel even longer.
Yeah, 100%. When it's, even if it's just a week, if one of us can't make it, then it's like, it feels like we haven't talked in forever. I will definitely co-sign that. But I know I wasn't here, I think, the past 2 weeks. Well, because last week was the Oscars, and then the week before that I was busy. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And Yasha, I should say you're joining us from the streets of Southern California. So stay safe as you join us on the podcast.
In the streets of LA. Don't worry, guys. I can't really go fast. I will be driving probably about 10 miles per hour is what I will kick it up to on this commute home. So, yes, I am in my car, and I will be careful.
Sounds like my commute some days.
So, yeah, it's been a time since we've recorded. Since you brought it up, Michelle, we didn't record last weekend because of the Oscars.
That's right. The Oscars that probably should never have been.
You jumped right into your thoughts.
Aww.
I was going to ask everybody, hey, what'd you think of the Oscars? But since you kind of jumped right into it, Michelle, what'd you think of the Oscars?
It was probably one of the lamer Oscars I've seen in a very long. Not that they've been great in the past few years. I kind of takes the cake for that one. That was.
So you're our resident.
Sad.
You're our resident Oscars aficionado, I guess we could put it.
Yeah, I would say the last few have not been great. But I feel like when it's lacking, sometimes the winners and acceptance speeches really kind of pull it up. But even this year, I feel like there was probably 3 acceptance speeches that I think were like, oh, okay, the feels. That's good. Good stuff right there. With my favorite, I will say, being lead actress, Olivia Colman's acceptance speech was damned adorable and lovable and wonderful. And yeah, she's a treat that we here in the Americas should embrace a lot better than we have been. And she was really cute and she was endearing to us, I think. And she was a lovely little highlight. But overall, it was not the best Oscars. Although, I will say, but maybe as far as performances and things that happened, not surprising in any way, shape, or form, but the performance of Lady Gaga with Bradley Cooper singing Shallow was a huge scene-stealing moment. Of course, there's been a lot of gossip ever since then, but whatever. But the performance itself was really good, and I honestly just enjoyed the way they shot it from the stage looking out onto the audience. I was like, oh, you guys are actually going to put together some thought process behind this show for a whole 3 minutes. This is incredible.
So that was going to be my quick question as soon as you brought it up. What did you think of the way they shot it? And you've already said you liked the way they shot it.
I liked the way they shot it. I thought it was really cool. And I feel like they actually thought outside the box, for 3 whole freaking minutes of the entire Oscar show. But I don't know. I was really bummed out by some of the selections. And unfortunately, I will say that I only had half of the awards correct on my ballot. There was 24. I got 12 of them correct. That is just sad, my friends.
You got my list over there, right? I think I got 11.
I do. I was just about to say, on the upside of that, that's one more than David Lott.
Yeah, it was a bad night.
We are the champions, my friends. I'm not gloating. It's totally fine. Anyways, yeah, so I got one up over David, which I don't think has ever happened. So There we have it. That's my Oscar takes. Oops. Let's bring on the next year.
Just say it was a bad year.
Let's actually get a host and maybe a concept of a theme for the show, and maybe do like a montage or two. And I don't know. Let's actually throw in entertainment with people that get paid to do it for a living. How about that? Can we try that maybe? That'd be cool. Super down with that.
Well, I'll say real quick. I feel like I follow in the no man's land of, I don't know. I've been seeing two different opinions on this show for the most part. I feel like people either liked it or they didn't. I saw a lot of I don't know what the hashtag was. It was like no more Oscar hosts, like people that were happy, like, hey, this totally works without a host. See, we don't need hosts anymore. And then people who didn't like the show. But I definitely fall in I did not like the show almost at all. But I'm still all for the no need for a host. Like, that's not the reason I didn't like it. But I think this was a bad example of how to do it without a host. Like, I no doubt believe they can do a great show and have no definitive host of the Oscars, but this was not the way to do it. I hated the way the show opened. It opened like the Grammys with, like, Queen concert. Like, I don't know. It was just that I guess is what bummed me out most about the way they handled not having a host. But yeah, I didn't like the show at all. I thought it was one of the worst Oscars we've seen in a while. And I think in an attempt to make the show more entertaining to a wider audience, I mean, I guess I'm not the wider audience you should be asking, but from my perspective, it didn't work. But I don't know. I mean, maybe if you ask a bunch of people, general audience members, maybe they did like it. I don't know. But there was just things about it I found really weird. Like, again, going back to an attempt to, I guess, appeal to maybe certain groups of people. Like, there were people popping up on stage, and I'm just like, Tom Morello at one point.
Right?
I'm like, what is he doing here? Why is what? And then I think Serena Williams at one point. I don't know. I mean, not that I have a problem with these people. They're great. But it just felt forced and odd that they were there. Like, such a weird attempt to, like, make it almost like hip or something. I don't know.
Appeal to the masses,
Yeah.
more of the masses. I guess, oh, so this is about movies, but let's appeal to people that like music. Let's appeal to the people that like sports. And it was like this weird stretch, and it wasn't cohesive in any way, shape, or form. And it was so like, wait, what?
I found that really weird.
It was a bit all over. It was a bit all over the place. Like, I will give you that. Like, it was like, I mean, I was kind of surprised when Serena popped up there too. I was like, okay, that's cool, I guess. Like, welcome to the Oscars.
Right.
But it just, I'm indifferent when it comes to the host. I thought that how fluid it was and kind of moved from moment to moment. It did cut a lot of time, so maybe that's something that was good we could take from the host. But I like the idea of a host. I like having somebody there. I like having, a comedian with an opening monologue and, that sort of thing. Like, I think that's, they're funny. I guess I'm a kind of a traditionalist when it comes to that, but I like the classic hosts and the people that, have a talent to being able to do, all different types of comedy and, think outside the box, push the edge a little bit, and just be funny. Like, just so excited to see them just up there kind of moving the show right along.
Maybe the answer is not having a host, but maybe they just have an opening stand-up comic. Like, just do a 10-minute opening monologue. Like, do a montage thing, like a performance, like Dave and I have said we enjoyed when we were younger in the 90s. Those were super cool with Billy Crystal and Whoopi Goldberg, and they always would do a thing. Like, do one of those, like, do a production number, right? And then have a comedian come out for 10 minutes and kind of open us up and kind of make, poke fun at things, like that's what we enjoy, right? You poke fun at the people that are nominated and the movies, and you question some of them and you love some of them. And let me give me that. I do enjoy that. And then after that, no host. I'm cool with no host after that point. Like, let's just do that.
I liked Tina Fey. Jesus, I'm blanking on the
Maya
other two.
Rudolph and Amy Poehler, yeah.
And Maya Rudolph. Yeah, and I like them. I think, having those three, because they're so funny and so creative, I bet they would crush it as a host.
Right.
Just put them all up there and have them do an opening monologue like they just did, and then maybe just like here and there come in as like, and now, you know, blah, 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 performing this, and now da-da-da-da this, and, you know, welcome back, and, you know, this is the Oscars or whatever and stuff like that, and having that kind of conversation on stage, I think it would be funny.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there was no doubt, since they were the first presenters, they even acknowledged the fact that, you know, they were up there for a little longer. They were almost playing the part of hosts, even though they were saying, hey, we're not the hosts, but there's no doubt they were in the position of kind of explaining, like introducing the evening, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, they totally would work as hosts. Like, the other thing I was going to say too about the awards themselves. I mean, you know, yeah, I didn't do too well. I got 11 out of 24. I mean, and I guess what I'm about to say is, I guess it's maybe the case to a point every year, but it just seemed to especially stand out this year that I don't know if something needs to change with the way that they vote on winners or what, but you know, I understand that when the kind of sections or parts of the Academy are determining their nominees, it is determined by, like, for example, with sound, you know, it's only basically people who are members of the Academy from that area that are determining their nominees. And I assume, you know, with editing and cinematography and such. But then once we get to the point that we have our nominees and we are determining winners, it's a free-for-all. Like, everyone is voting on all of these categories. And I feel like this year is a perfect example as to why that should absolutely not be the case.
Yes. Like, I know exactly what you're going to talk about.
The fact that for sound editing, that Bohemian Rhapsody won for sound editing.
Oh my God.
Is boggling to the mind. I don't understand. I even actually predicted it would win mixing. Not that I agree with that, but I predicted it, and it did. But the fact that it also won editing, just because it's a movie with music in it, like,
it makes me want to peel my skin off my face.
It hurts.
It hurts.
And then film editing, the fact that movie,
my God,
won film editing is, it's crazy.
Considering that was my number one problem with that film, was literally the way that film was edited. For it to win film editing at the Oscars makes me want to pull my eyeballs out. Like, I don't understand.
I don't know. I really felt like this year, especially when it came to some of the choices for winners, that we started to go down the road of making it more like the Golden Globes, and it hurt to watch. So I don't know. Overall, my takeaway, I did not enjoy the Oscars. I usually look forward to Oscar Sunday every year. It's just a day where I even throw on E for most of the day, and just, even though it's not like I care about fashion and red carpet stuff, but it's just like, it's on. I'm hanging out today, and it's Oscar Sunday, and
they interview some people that are involved. You know, they interview the cinematographers, they interview the directors, and some of they interview people on and off.
It's just my way of saying, I enjoy Oscar Sunday, but then when the show came, and it didn't take long, like 30 minutes, an hour in, I was like, man, this sucks. I could totally even just turn this off now and go to bed, and I'd be okay. Like, I stayed up, I watched the whole thing, but it bummed me out. Bobby, you've been quiet so far. I'm curious. What did you watch it? What did you think of it?
Bobby thinks the three of us are insane.
No, I don't. And I completely get where you guys are coming from. I mean, I'm an Oscar fan since, like, I was a young kid, and I've always watched it and enjoyed it because I've always had such a love for cinema and movies and everything. So, and you guys know how many movies I tend to watch in a year. So to me, the Oscar ceremony is a big deal, but I think I look at it maybe slightly different than you guys do, because for me, since I see so many of these things, my enjoyment level rides on not so much what they do with the show, but who wins. And because I'm sitting there rooting for certain things, and when I hear those names, my enjoyment level goes up. When I hear Black Panther winning for these different categories, I'm like, you know, finally breaking through on some of these things, being the comic book movie, being the first female person of color to do this. You know, those things mean something to me in a way that it's like it supersedes the show itself. And so some of those things are like that. And then just some of the movies that I watch, or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse winning for Best Animated over a Pixar movie. I mean, that kind of stuff, it resonates with me. So it makes me kind of distill all the other aspects down and not really care about it. Because if it was me and I was the person who could run the Oscars, to me, honestly, because I just care about the categories and the winners, I would have it to where there's no host. There's some people who come on stage and announce who the people are in the category. They say the winner, and the camera pans to the person who won, and they're waving from their seat like, "Hey, I just won." And as they're waving and someone's saying, "Hey, they just won," two more people just came out and they're about ready to announce the next category, and they were keep on moving, because I don't really. I mean, the speeches and everything, they're great sometimes, but honestly, I find a lot of times when there's presenters, and for these people to be actors, sometimes they seem so stiff and uncomfortable on stage doing their little banter and their little thing is just, it makes me uncomfortable. So I could do away with a lot of that stuff and just hear just them listing off the winners and having them wave and say, "Yeah, I won," and then doing an interview off stage, and I'll listen to their interview about who they think later. Because I just really care about seeing some of those winners. But I mean, for the most part, I will say I enjoyed it just from the aspects of seeing some of these categories win. But I wouldn't say I was entertained, because there wasn't that element to it per se. There wasn't the host. There wasn't, some more types of things that happen throughout the show that kind of brings the general audience person into it. But, like I said, that's kind of fine for me, because I really just am specifically tuned into and honed in on who's winning and seeing the people that I hope win to actually get that win. So I get totally why everyone feels the way they do, but I kind of go into the Oscars looking for something slightly different than most, I guess. So I don't really, I can't really say anything bad in terms of like, "Oh, you're wrong about what you think was wrong with this year's Oscars," because I can see it and I can totally get behind it. But for me, I guess I kind of come at it differently.
There's a couple of things about the Oscars that I really took from this one, and I really, really enjoyed. One, legitimately jumped up when I saw that Spider-Man won. That was so exciting for me. I don't know why, but
redeeming
I was just
moment
really, really
of the
happy.
night.
Oh, so cool. And the other was watching Chris Evans' reaction when Black Panther won its Oscar. That made me so genuinely happy, because he was excited. And that was cool to see something that I think he was like, I'm involved in this world, and see them win an Oscar was very, very exciting for me as well. Like, watching Black Panther win as many as they did, a comic book movie, win these Oscars, I couldn't have been happier. And for all the reasons that Bobby said as well, first Black person winning when it comes to that, it was really, 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 really cool to see that. But to see the reaction of some of these people when it came to those movies winning, I was really happy about that. That was fun for me.
Well, anyway, that I guess that's our take on the Oscars. It's over. I hope for better next year.
God willing.
That's all I got.
I was quickly going to give a small shout out today to RIP to somebody that, I'll be honest, didn't really influence my life in a few ways, but apparently did in a lot of others. But fare thee well, Luke Perry. You went a little too early, man. It's a shame.
How old was he? 52?
52.
He had a stroke last week, and I guess it was a massive, massive stroke, and it took him. And it's like, was he a great, wonderful actor and well-known? No, but it's like he was a part of pop culture in the 90s that I think was very influential, especially with like our generation. It was a thing, and like I see memes today and people, it's kind of a funny joke, but it's not a joke, but it's definitely like PSA, people check on your girlfriends if they're between the ages of 35 to 50. We're not okay. # Luke Perry. And I'm like, I'll be honest, I don't disagree with that. Like, there's a lot of women right now that are like, oh wow, that was like my first teen heartthrob, that was my first crush, or even guys that were like, that was my first crush, like, so right. Anyways, so yeah, rest in peace, man.
But yeah, no, you're not wrong. It was like, I mean, I hand to God, never really watched 90210.
Yeah, I never did either.
I do know the characters because it was that much of a thing. Like, I mean, that came out when I was in high school. Actually, one of my best friends from high school, funny enough, was he transferred in our senior year, little white kid. And I remember it clear as day because it was absolutely hilarious. And one of my friends was sitting there just staring at him. And he was just like, what, man? What is the problem? He's like, you look like Dylan from 90210. And that was it. Mm-hmm. His name was Dylan for the rest of the year. That was September. And everybody called him pretty much Dylan for the rest of the year because he looked like Dylan from 90210. But it's just like, it was a thing. You're right, Michelle. It was a thing. And it was a huge, massive thing. And, I knew when he passed away, I was just like, oh, man, that kind of sucks. I was like 52 years old is really young. And he wasn't this spectacular actor, as you said, but he did have a talent.
Right.
And he was good when he did pop into places. It's just like he was fun to watch. So it's just like, it's kind of, sad to see somebody be taken so early.
Yeah.
And, so quickly. I mean, all we can hope for is that, maybe hopefully he just didn't suffer.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't relate to any of the fans for 90210 or even Riverdale, which is the show he's most recently been known for, is his work on that show. But, I mean, like, I remember the very few seconds, minutes he's in The Fifth Element. But honestly, for me, Luke Perry was always Pike in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And, like, he was this snarky, like, I'm a tough guy, but I'm really not a tough guy. I'm a big softie. Like, it was like this iconic character for a lot of people that enjoyed Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that enjoyed that film. And like, yeah, that's Luke Perry to me. Is literally that character. And I will always have that in my memory. So
I didn't even know he was in Riverdale. Like, so, like, I mean, and that's the truth. I was just like, oh, he's in Riverdale too? Well, cool, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
So, anyways,
yeah, I actually did watch 90210 all the time, like religiously, and he was definitely that character and that guy that everybody would want to be like if you were, in that real life, just because he was sort of the bad boy and he was the character that all the girls wanted to float to,
right?
And so he had that aura, that thing about him. And from all reports that I've seen, he seems like he was a genuinely good guy in real life too. So it's sad to see someone go, and it's always sad to see him go early. And that seems to be the case here. And I think I read somewhere where they said that I think he was put into an induced coma, but then I guess he didn't get better. So he went into his sleep. Yeah. So it is sad. It's definitely sad.
Oh. Anyways, I didn't mean to bum everybody out. It was just kind of like I can respect people who are hurting right now for him. So.
With that,
David's like, let me pull something cheerful out.
I'm expecting the transition out of that. Thanks, Michelle.
I don't mean to be all bum. I don't mean to bum everybody out, man.
So there's a 90210 reboot coming, right? That's what I heard.
Yeah, there is actually.
Actually, I think that was news as we on top of all of it.
But the thing is, I think just briefly, since you did sort of bring it up, it's for a lot of people who've seen that news that there is a 90210. I think they saw the headline, but the aspect of the show is supposed to be that the actors are playing themselves, but just a heightened version of themselves, and they're trying to put together a 90210 reboot. So that's the concept of the show. So it's like just not actually a 90210 thing, but it's kind of like around that kind of a concept of a thing.
Okay. All right.
Sort of like if you've seen Curb Your Enthusiasm and one of the seasons they did sort of a Seinfeld thing where they were trying to do another season of Seinfeld, but the actors were playing themselves, but sort of in between them playing themselves, they were showing parts of what this new season of Seinfeld would have been kind of like, but very tongue in cheek. So
Gotcha.
I think it's similar to that.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, with that, what else has been going on other than the Oscars? I had all week to sit around and just stew about the things that annoyed me about that. So that basically took my week up. Other than that, I did watch, by the way, Bobby, a couple episodes of Deadly Class. I'm like 2 episodes in.
Oh, okay.
So I'm intrigued in that show so far. Like, I know, I think when you talked about it, if I remember correctly, I think it almost sounded like 3rd episode that you were like, okay, now you were all in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. It's interesting. It's different, but it's interesting.
It's definitely different. I felt like you got your comic book shows where everyone has powers, and not all of them are the same, and not all of them are formulaic in that way where you kind of know, like the CW aspects of their superhero shows or some of the other ones. It's based off of a graphic novel or a comic, but no one has powers, but they're all in this school for assassins, so they kind of have these abilities in the sense that they're kind of like warriors, ninja kind of aspects, or fighters, great fighters, and using weapons and different skills and trained in the arts of trying to essentially be an assassin, but yet they're still high school-ish type kids, and so you still have that level of drama and aspect that goes along with it, but it just does some things differently. And not to mention visually it does things differently. I don't know if you've seen it in the episodes that you've watched so far, but sometimes they intercut animation into the show, and I don't know if that's like legit the animation of or the visuals of the comics, or if it's just done within the show, but they do it in such a way that it adds to the storytelling. So I think it's just done in a real different kind of way. And just in general, the show itself has its own sort of uniqueness to it. And I'm still watching it, still really into it.
Yeah. So far, both episodes, the pilot and the 2nd episode, have included some animation. And I wondered the same thing too. Like, is this animation kind of in the style of the comic, or is it just kind of some random style, which doesn't need to be the style of the comic? It was just curiosity.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm enjoying the show so far. There's things about it though, like, and hear me out, I get that you have to, suspend disbelief a little bit. It's a show about a school for assassins. It's kind of ridiculous, like right there. But at the same time, if we're going to kind of exist in that world, right, there's things about it that I'm like, okay, well, things that still quite don't make sense. Like, for example, I think it was in the 2nd episode when he's walking through the halls and you see like a group of girls that are basically, they're cheerleaders. And I'm like, well, what are they cheerleaders for?
I had the same thought. I had the same thought.
Do they have a football team? Are they
like,
playing against other high schools?
I mean, the interesting thing, like, I was looking, I'm like, why are they cheerleaders? I don't understand. But then, like, if you look at it, I think those were like the white supremacist girls, which was really even more interesting. I'm like, is it so they can practice marching? I don't understand what's happening here.
Are they just like confused. They're like we're in school, so like, we're just gonna dress like this.
This is what we have to do to be in high school. It was really weird. I had the same thought. That's hilarious.
Aspects like that about the show that it's like, okay. I mean, again, I know maybe I'm thinking way too much into a show with this kind of premise, but still, it's like stuff like that sticks out. I think most people, you would find yourself imagining, I'm like, okay, well, why would that be taking place? Like, you want to at least somewhat try to fit an idea like this into a real world situation. Like, how would it work if it were real? And something like seeing some girls, okay, well, we're cheerleaders. I mean, my first thought is like, well, what? Like, I imagine this is a secret school. Obviously, it's in the back of what it looks like some type of deli market or something, it's, I don't know. Anyway, otherwise though, I am enjoying it. So far.
I don't even know what this show is. What is this show that you're talking about?
I mean, Bobby, you could probably explain it better. It's on Sci-Fi. As you mentioned, Bobby, it's based on a graphic novel, but it's it's basically about a school for assassins. So it's kind of all high school aged kids.
It's called Deadly Class.
Okay.
It's interesting. I'm looking forward to episode 3. I think I've always been a third episode person. If you can't win me over by the third episode, I'm out. Like they saw so far, I'm intrigued. I think I need to see the third episode, and we'll see how it goes. That's just kind of how I've always operated with TV shows.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the third episode is where I really started to feel pulled into it.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely.
No, I'm the same way. Second or third episode. I mean, the second one is kind of touch and go if it's stupid, but then it's like the third one is like if it really can't get me to keep going with it, then I'm all out.
But
what else, David?
That's basically my week.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, other than my continuing Game of Thrones marathon, but
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, we're close. Just a little over a month or less.
We're a little more than a month. I think it's mid-April, so
like April 14th or something like that, I think.
Yeah, and I think as long as I get to season 4 by I think it's this Friday, I'm on schedule.
Nice.
I was ahead of schedule there for a little bit, and now I'm definitely like, okay, I'm basically now like right on schedule. But like tonight, I won't watch an episode, so I'll be a little behind.
So, Michelle, have you watched anything? You're like quiet over there.
I've also started, obviously, what is the show again? Deadly Class. I've started that, so that's been what's up. I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones.
I saw something on Instagram where it looked like David was mentioning that you guys were back at it again. I think he was referring to the soccer league you guys or soccer team you guys support.
Yes.
Did that start back up or something?
The season opener for the Orlando City was on Saturday.
Wait, that's their name? The Orlando City?
Well, it's Orlando City Soccer Club.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so it was a season opener on Saturday. It was an all-day thing. It was a whole tailgating extravaganza. The game was at 3. It was an event. It was a lot of fun. I do enjoy soccer season. I do enjoy going to the games. I will say the only thing that honestly is annoying about soccer season is the time that it cuts into seeing movies and TV.
Nice.
That's literally my one. I'm like, oh, it cuts out so much time.
That's why I need to set up a flat screen in the back of the car so that we can tailgate and watch Game of Thrones episodes.
The whole thing.
Right. We could tailgate, watch Game of Thrones, and then go see the game. Yeah, it works out great.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait,
I'm okay with that.
I did see also, I don't know, maybe I'm mixing these things up, but it seemed like, Michelle, you were also talking about spring training, and I only refer to spring training as thinking in baseball terms.
That is also correct.
Oh, so
man, Bobby, somebody likes me on Instagram.
I see things. Sometimes these things pop up, and I'm like, oh, what are they up to right now? So,
we're always doing the things. The things are always happening.
What is this?
Oh, so, okay. So it is baseball. I am referencing baseball.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoy the sport of baseball. It's a big thing in my life, my childhood. We used to always go to games, professional, AAA, all kinds of stuff. Perks of being in Florida is that for the entire month of March and like the first week of April is spring training for half of the league is in Florida and the other half is in Arizona. And, yeah, so here in Orlando, we have had for 16 years, 20 years, the Atlanta Braves trains on.
I'm like, what are you about to say?
They train, their spring training is a Disney property at Disney's Wild World of Sports. Okay. This is going to be the very last season for the Atlanta Braves spring training at Disney's Wild World of Sports. They're going to move to a coast. So all the other sports teams, mostly, I will say, are actually on the Gulf Coast. There's a team, I think, actually in St. Pete, and then it works its way down to Bradenton, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples, and then there's teams scattered in little towns. And so every March, I always try to go to minimally one spring training game for any team, really. I'm not that picky about it. It's like going and having a nice day at a ballpark and having a beer and a hot dog and watching guys play baseball. It's a thing. I like it. It's what I do. So I got to do that on Sunday, and I didn't like either of those teams, but I'm just so desperate to go see baseball, so I went.
What teams were they?
So in Orlando, it's the Atlanta Braves, and they were playing the Florida Marlins. But I do like going out for a weekend to Sarasota and Bradenton because there's 3 teams within like a 20-mile radius of each other. And you can literally see 3 baseball games in like a 48-hour time frame. It's pretty sweet. So yeah, no,
That's cool.
I will say the benefits of being in Florida for the month of March are plentiful. There's a lot of sports that are happening. Basketball is still a big thing. The Magic are still having a pretty stellar season thus far, shockingly. And yeah, no, it's a great time for sports in Orlando, Florida.
Let's be clear, stellar for the Magic.
Stellar
might be a bit much.
And I'm not a Magic fan. Let me rephrase that. It's a stellar season for the Orlando Magic. For any other professional basketball team, it's
not great.
But yeah. I'm just saying, there's sports, there's things, there's cool things to do outside in the month of March where it's not like insanely hot like it's going to be in about 3 weeks when it's actually almost the end of March and beginning of April. Anyways.
I have one more Florida question, Orlando specific, I guess. So I saw David. It's so funny. It's like I'm always seeing what you guys are up to here and there, and then I have questions sometimes. So I saw David had liked something on Twitter, and it was in reference to, I guess, the Epcot Center is building something like, I don't know, reworking something that they used to have. Like, what's the deal there? What was the Epcot Center missing? Like some sort of fountain or something?
Fountain of Nations.
Oh, yeah. I think I recently saw via, I forget what account on Twitter, that there was a rendering of basically how they're redoing the front of the park, which right now at the front of the park features these kind of monolith-like stones that a while back people could pay to have like a laser etching of their face on these stone things.
Back in the late 90s, early millennia.
Yeah, and if you're feeling really crazy, you can run through there now and try to find an NSYNC's like faces somewhere in there. Anyway,
I found that one time with some girlfriends like a million years ago.
So basically, I mean, if this rendering is true, I don't know how official that announcement was. Like, they're removing all that. They're going back to these kind of planters and everything. But the coolest thing about it is that because back kind of, I think it's around the time when they added those stones, they changed the fountain. And they had removed this very Epcot classic kind of like, it's a very 80s look, but it's awesome. Like this kind of like, I don't know, in the center of the fountain, there was like these, I think it was like these 3 like kind of stone flat things that go up, and it had like the old Epcot logo like right in the middle of them. And
I think you know what logo you're talking about.
And in the rendering, that thing in the middle of the fountain is like coming back.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that was super 80s.
Again, I'm saying all this like I don't know how official all this is. But yeah, I think that's what you're referring to, Bobby.
So on a super weird Disney note,
since we're talking Disney, I was going to say something about Disney too. So
were you talking about Disneyland, Star Wars?
No, I was just going to say, like, since you're bringing up Disney, that was one other thing I did this weekend. I went to a park on Sunday, which I hadn't been to a Disney park in a little while. I don't go as much anymore. I mean, I've been to Epcot somewhat recently, but I feel like Epcot's different. Like, Epcot is, for me, like almost another category of park. I go to Epcot to, like, chill and walk around and drink.
Yeah, Epcot's almost, dare I say, relaxing at times.
It is. It's the only park that is left that is relaxing because...
And it's losing that relaxing
It's
very
funny,
quickly.
too, because, what was it? Very recently or sometime this week, Disney put out some more information and they did some press preview stuff for Galaxy's Edge, the new Star Wars land that's coming to Disneyland and to Disney World. And it's funny. I think I've seen 3 versions of this picture in a meme on Instagram and Twitter, where it's an image of the Millennium Falcon, and there's like a father and a daughter in the foreground,
and like his kid,
and there's like maybe 2 other people on the side, and then otherwise it's like stormtroopers and stuff, and it's an image of that. And then, you know, someone has taken it and shown you what it'll look like in real life, where it's just packed full of people. And
like the reality is completely a 180.
You're never going to have that much space.
Never going to have that moment. That magical moment alone with your child, embracing the wonder and majesty that is the Millennium Falcon and or all of Star Wars section. That is never going to happen.
And it's funny because then, sure enough, this weekend went with the kids and my parents to Disney's Hollywood Studios, which is the park here in Orlando that will have, you know, the new Star Wars land. And we went, and they have a new Toy Story area there now. We kind of walked through that, and when we didn't do a lot because this is also the new Fast Pass era of, you know, of the Disney parks. And, you know, this was, long story short, it was a trip that wasn't really planned for, and we didn't have Fast Passes for anything. And really, without Fast Passes anymore, there's really not doing much of anything. You really have to plan ahead to go to the parks, like if you actually want to ride things. And
which makes me sad.
And in one sense, it's annoying being someone who grew up in a time when there was no Fast Pass. Like, you just went to the parks and you got in line, and if it was a popular ride, you just had to wait. And if it wasn't popular, maybe you got lucky. You didn't have to wait so long. But now it's like you really have to plan ahead. And in one sense, part of me wants to be annoyed that Fast Pass even exists. But at the same time, the parks are different. The attendance at the parks is just so incredibly different in that they are just, at least here at Disney World, they seem to be packed like year round all the time now, to a point that without Fast Pass, I can't imagine. Like, you basically have to have Fast Pass, and you just have to plan ahead. And that probably is the only way it makes it bearable. It's just so busy. And I mean, you guys know me. I am a Star Wars fan. And part of me wants to be so pumped and excited that this Star Wars land is coming, right? Like, but at the same time, it's hard to get excited because I don't even know when I'll experience it. Like, I don't have an annual pass. I'm not going to get one anytime soon. They're you know, I mean, they're expensive. And
I'm not willing to deal with the crap show that's going to occur for the first year that thing is open. It's going to be insanity.
That's what I'm about to say. Like, yeah, it's going to be insane there. And to the point that it's somewhat surprising too, considering how much attendance they have at the parks here and how much land they still have left, that they didn't just build a Star Wars park. Like, you could have built a 5th park and just built a Star Wars park completely on its own, and it would have done incredibly well. Like, it's going to be crazy there, to the point that, I agree with you, Michelle. I don't even know if I want to go. The only way I would go is if I did have an annual pass and they did like annual pass previews, and I'd go to the annual pass preview, and that'd probably be it. But yeah, it's hard to get excited about something that I think is just going to be too insane to enjoy for a while, you know? So yeah, there's that. That was that weekend Disney experience. I'm
surprised that our conversation has diverged into what you and I do on the weekend.
I know. We're almost out of time.
I know. I feel like
I thought we were going to talk about the 20 movies that Bobby watched this week, but
I know. I was like, I still wanted to hear what Yasha saw, because I'm sure he saw at least 1 or 2 movies.
You know what? I did see a movie this weekend. I saw The Upside. Kevin Hart. I almost said Kevin Garnett. Sorry, and Bryan Cranston.
I was curious about that film.
I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it. I thought it was a sweet story. It wasn't too much of Kevin Hart acting like Kevin Hart in the movie. You know, I really do feel like he just he tried to step a little bit away from his realm of what we're used to seeing when it comes to him being in films. Bryan Cranston was fantastic, but I mean, Bryan Cranston pretty much does fantastic in just about everything that he does at this point in time. And it's interesting to hear about this, this true story about this quadriplegic, basically befriending somebody who is this caregiver who had no foreseeable talent or skill set, I should say, in taking care of him. Genuinely enjoyed it. Thought it was a fun movie. I would definitely recommend it to people because I think it was a really a good time, and it was a heartwarming story. And it was really, kind of reflective in regards to not taking things for granted, sort of thing. Because this man, was able to walk at one point, did have all the use of his faculties, and then he lost it. And I can't imagine living to the point where I can't use my faculties and need a caregiver like that. So it was interesting. It was an interesting movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good watch.
Yeah, I got to see it too, and I feel the same way. It was just something out of Kevin Hart's normal sort of parameters he stays within usually, and it was good to see him do something a little bit different. And just the story in general between these two people is what I enjoyed, and it was, it's still doing pretty well actually, I think.
Yeah, it's going strong in the theater. I mean, there was still people in there watching it when I was there. I mean, quite a few anyways, I should say.
Did you get a chance to see anything else?
Oh, did we talk about Alita? Because I did see Alita. I don't remember if we got a chance to talk about that. Yeah. I'm interested to hear what you think about Alita, Bobby. I really am, because I know you saw it. Did you see it?
Yeah, and I can't remember if David and Michelle saw it, but I liked it. I thought they did a pretty good job with Alita. I mean, I still, by the end of it, still felt a little bit weird about how she looks, but the character herself, I really got into her story and where she was going with things. And I enjoyed a lot of the action parts of it, especially there's a part where she kind of goes off in a bar, and I thought it was fun. And even towards the end, where the action kind of ramps up, I thought was really good. But it made me leave the theater really hoping that it did well enough to see where they would go with a sequel.
Wow. Okay. So I watched it and I thought, this is okay. I didn't think of it anything really spectacular. I thought it was kind of campy. I thought it was cheesy. The special effects were cool. The fight scenes were cool. I know the bar scene that you're referring to, I thought that was fantastic. But overall, I found it quite subpar in storyline and very kind of predictable. And I could take it or leave it when it comes to seeing it again. What I did find, or seeing a sequel, what I did find interesting and I really enjoyed was the mixture of CGI and real life application of what these people look like, or the actors when they're dressed, because you can tell that they had, there was so much special effects integrated with these characters. I thought it was fantastic. But I really don't feel like there was anything super special about this movie. And I think a lot of people felt the same because from last I checked, it underperformed quite a bit in the theater. And I mean, it's doing well, rather well overseas, but I don't know if it's going to carry enough to actually warrant a sequel. Even with the huge cliffhanger for a sequel, I honestly could care less. I'm not super interested. On a scale of 1 to 10, I probably thought it was like a 4 or a 5 at best.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was
like you
all
said,
that
you're not
special.
wrong. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people who felt that way, and it's reflective in its, at least its stateside box office. But I guess I just enjoyed it for what it was. And you're right, the story elements, and there's some acting aspects and love story that I didn't too much care for, but there was enough there that made me enjoy it, and was hoping that it do well enough for me to kind of see where they could go further if they, had a chance to. But at this
Right.
point, it's still a toss up in terms of if it will reach profitability and be able to kind of get that sequel. But I did watch some stuff, so I will kind of run through that quickly because I know we're running out of time. But
Yeah, you got 1
I
minute.
got a chance to 1 minute. I could actually do it in 1 minute.
I'm kidding, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I got a chance to watch Greta, which is a movie that came out, I believe, this past weekend. It has Chloe Grace Moretz in it, and also I can't think of the French lady's name in it. Let me see, Isabelle Huppert. and I don't remember what she was in, but I remember her having a big award season like last year for a movie that she was in. But in this movie, she is Greta, and she's this widowed older lady that Chloe Grace Moretz's character befriends, and you find that fairly quickly that Greta is pretty nuts, and the movie kind of expresses that in a way where she has such a relationship with Chloe's character that it's unhealthy, and Chloe's character starts to try to get her to back down, but it only helps to ramp her up. And overall, it was something I would say it didn't really work for me. This movie really didn't pass my eyeball test, which is one of those things where if I roll my eyes too many times, that means I'm not really enjoying it. And it's just, there's too many implausible moments or things that the characters do and their choices that just don't seem to fit what they should be doing or what any other logical person would do. So it really didn't pass that test for me. So unfortunately, I wouldn't really say I could recommend it to people unless it was something that you were watching at home. And even then, there's some better stuff out
there. Damn. I mean, because I saw the trailer for the first time this week. I was like, what's Greta? When I was trying to figure out what I wanted to watch. And I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that looks amazing. Like, I was so excited to watch that. And then hearing that somebody who I have known and is a good friend, and I highly respect his opinion on these movies, to actually hear you say, I don't recommend going to see that, where that doesn't happen a lot. Like, you don't say that a lot, like, is heart-wrenching, because it's like, that means that I would really be pissed off if I went and watched that movie, and I'd be like, you got to be shitting me, man. You have literally got to be shitting me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an awful movie. It's just one of those movies where you feel like, okay, I just spent, an hour and a half or whatever watching this, and it was all right. And I could have probably watched this at home while I was doing something else kind of feeling, where if you're going to go to the theater and spend your money and really sit down for that time, then I would say there's other things out there that you should probably go see before that you'll really come out of it feeling good, which I would say that very much applies to How to Train Your Dragon 3. And I've seen this whole series in the theater, and I gotta say, it seems like every time they ramp up the CG in these movies, and this movie, it was absolutely gorgeous. Like, I really couldn't describe how overwhelmed in a good way I felt looking at some of the CG in the movie. And there's these times, anyone who knows this series knows that there's these scenes in it when the dragons are flying, and it really has this feeling to make you kind of have that same sort of vibe as if you're in the movie flying with these dragons. And it does that here as well. But I swear it seems like they ramp up the CG and the effects every time, and it looks even more and more believable and just breathtaking in the way that it's displayed. And in this movie, it's got Hiccup and Toothless once again, and they're sort of being hunted in a way by some of these new characters that are really trying to contain all the dragons. So it's sort of like a rehash in a sense of that same story where there's other Vikings that want to possess the dragons, but this one has like a different bad guy who's specifically a dragon hunter. And the introduction in this one is this Light Fury that's a dragon that's a female that can be comparable to Toothless. And so you get this sort of love story between these other two dragons, but it's all done so really well in the way that this series has just done a good job of telling these stories without it seeming like it's specifically kiddie or being one of those series where a lot of DreamWorks movies they're always very heavy in pop culture references and stuff. And the How to Train Your Dragon series has never done that. It's just sort of told its own story, and that's what you get here as well. And it wraps itself up in such a really, really good way. And this is supposed to be, as they've said, that this is supposed to be the last movie. They're not doing any more. We'll see. I mean, from what I've seen in the tracking, it's actually opened better than the last two movies have, and it possibly can make more than those other two movies. So we'll see if DreamWorks holds true to them saying that this is the final movie. But it's absolutely well worth a trip to the theater to watch this movie if you've seen the other two.
That excites me because I want to see it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because like I love the first one, and I'm actually pretty interested in seeing this one. But I've seen parts of the second one, but I have not sat and watched the second one from start to finish all the way through. But I mean, like I loved the first one a lot. Like I think it's a pretty special story, and yeah. Now I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear you like that one this much.
Yeah, it'll get you. It'll definitely get you.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Get you right in the feels.
Definitely in the feels. Let's see. What else did I see? Oh, I saw a movie came out maybe a couple weeks ago, and it was. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's called Fighting with My Family, and it's the story of this female wrestler called Paige, and it's her story of how she became just from a fighting family background in England and ended up in the WWE. And the Rock is one of the Dwayne Johnson. He's one of the producers on this, and he also appears in the movie. And I hadn't been aware of Paige's story. I kind of knew who she was, but I hadn't watched wrestling in such a long time, so she wasn't someone who was necessarily on my radar. But the story in the movie was very well done. I had this feeling of like really getting to know this person and her story and her journey, and at the heart of it is there's an interesting dynamic there because her and her brother are both wrestlers in this family, and they both are trying out for the WWE. And in the trailers, this isn't giving anything away. She gets accepted and he doesn't. And then there's that how do you deal with something that you've trained your whole life to do and wanted to do, and it's your passion, and you're told you can't do it. And so there's some of that in there as well, and that jealousy that can form, and that is part of the story, but not the whole story. And a lot of it is her journey, and she encounters a lot of bumps along the way, and it's very well told, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it felt like it was definitely a family friendly movie, but it's not one of those movies where you think you would have to know a lot about wrestling to go see it. It seems very broad enough to where you would be able to go watch it without knowing it. And they explain some of the different terminology and stuff in wrestling. And it's an interesting look behind the scenes in a way too, of how people and what they have to go through in order to become a WWE wrestler. And it's a lot harder than you would think, or maybe it's as hard as you would think, but it's definitely something that if you're aspiring to it, it takes a lot to really get to be seen by millions of people. But I enjoyed it. And the last thing I watched was a movie on Netflix that's actually fairly old. It came out in 2012. It's called Would You Rather? And it's a horror movie kind of concept where these people get invited to a house, and they're all kind of in need of money. And so there's different types of people there. And the host, he has this game that he plays, and it's Would You Rather? And so it starts off fairly tame, where who's a vegetarian says, well, I'll give you $10,000 to eat this steak. And then, it's like, well, will they do that for this money? Sure, why not? And then a guy who's an alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic, will you drink this, container of vodka and for 50,000? And then it just starts to ramp up further and further and gets more vicious. And I really dug it. And it was because of that element where you really start to see like, will these people do these things? And if the would you rather is, if I have to do this to you, then I don't have to do that thing to myself. And so it's like, would you hurt yourself as opposed to hurt someone else? And then if you're all doing these different things, who ends up surviving that? And so it's yeah, I really liked it. Especially it's like it's Netflix. I'm at home, I'm chilling, and it's something I can watch. And I just like those kind of concepts just because it's an interesting look into like that. It makes you question those things about yourself, like what would I do in this situation? So I think that's the element I liked about it. But there, it's not. I wouldn't say it's borderline for. I would say for someone like Yasha who doesn't like gore, because there's definitely an element of gore into it, but it's not. It's not throughout. So it could be like very borderline for someone like Yasha, but I really enjoyed it more so than I thought I was going to before I pressed play, because it started off a little slow and the acting wasn't great towards the beginning, but once it starts to ramp up, it really gets good.
I think I've seen this. Who's in it?
So Brittany Snow is the main female character protagonist in it, and then there's the guy. His name is Eddie Steeples, who's in it. Who's an African American guy who was in the show with My Name Is Earl. He was in that. Who else is in this?
Okay. Then I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. There's another one that kind of has the same concept. This movie came out years ago, and I don't remember his name, but Champ from Anchorman is in it, and it's kind of the same premise, and I really enjoyed that. It was really kind of set up as a dark comedy, and it's almost like a dare game. Like you're at a bar, it's like, how much would it take you to go for me to give you to go over there and hit on that girl in front of her boyfriend? I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. It's like, and it's about these two guys who just end up being really desperate for money. And it's like, okay, well, $20. You know, it's like $20, I'll go do it. Or 50. And it's like, and you can outbid each other. And it's like, well, I'll do it for. And it's like, I'll do it for 15. And you know, go down that way. You know, like to see who it is. Like, okay, $500. You go over there and slap the bartender. It's like, well, all right, I'll do it for $500. And the other guy's like, and it's basically this guy Champ has all this suitcase of money, and he's basically giving these guys like, all right, how much for one of you to cut off their pinky, you know? And it's like, you know, gets down to that dark, and it's like, I'll do it for, you know, it's like $1,000 you cut off your pinky, and it's like you're underbidding the person to get the money. It's like, I'll do it for $500, you know, that kind of thing. Like, and it was just an interesting kind of story. I dug it though.
Yeah, but
I'm
I think I have that on my.
Rather.
Yeah, you might like this, and I think I will check that out, because I think the movie you're talking about, I have it on my Netflix list as well, and I just hadn't watched it yet. So I think I might check that out after having seen this Would You Rather.
Okay. I need to watch Would You Rather then. All right, I should give that a shot.
Yeah, I've seen Would You Rather that came out in like 2012, I think.
Yeah. What'd you think? When did you see that?
A while back. I mean, it was a long time ago. I mean, if I say long ago, it was could have been 6 years ago. I don't think I saw it right when it came out, but I remember I saw it. And it's funny though. I mean, now I can't remember what I really thought about it. I remember I saw it, and I think I thought it was interesting and kind of entertaining, but I don't think I loved it or anything.
Yeah, it's definitely entertaining. It's just you start to get into it as they have these Would You Rathers and they start ramping up.
Right.
I am almost done. I'm going to add in there. Yeah, I'm going to just chime in and say that I'm almost done with season 1 of the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
And what do you think?
I love it. I think it's fantastic. Alex Borstein.
Damn straight you do.
She is by far the best character. She is so much fun every time she's on screen. She says something that's so wild, and I just absolutely adore her in this show. Like, I mean, Mrs. Maisel is fantastic too. I just love the banter back and forth, and I love the illusion that Tony Shalhoub has as this father who says he has control of this house when he absolutely has no control over his house.
Right.
Like, none whatsoever.
Wait till season 2. It gets so much better. You just look at him and you just go, oh, sweetie.
Like, all the characters, I think everybody has made me laugh out loud at least once. Like, not like jovial, but just like, ha! No way. And then it's like it just keeps going. And it's like,
sounds about right.
The banter is so brilliantly written, and Alex Borstein's character is so fantastic. Like, I just really, really enjoy the show. Like, I just genuinely enjoy this program. I think I'm actually curious as like how much this costs per episode to make, because their set pieces and costumes are so beautiful and so fantastic. And I feel so true to form for the 1950s that I'm just like, how is this? Like, this is crazy, like how much this is probably costing them. But they've done well so far. I hope they sign. Have they announced the season 3, or is that still in the works?
I think it's still in the works. I don't think they've announced it, have they?
You might be right. Maybe they haven't officially announced it, but it's definitely happening because the main stars were negotiating for pay bumps, and they got it. So I think Rachel went from I forget how much they said she was making, but I think she's now making like $300,000, $400,000 an episode or something like that.
Oh, wow. Good for her.
I mean, it's super going to be a 3rd season because it's just the writing is just so good. The writing is just so damn good. And that's just really all there is to it. I wish there was something better.
It's so seamless. Like, the way that they interact. Like, there are times when it feels like, there are times to me when it feels, and I usually hate this, there are times when it feels like that I can tell that they're just reciting lines, and I don't fucking care. I just want to hear what they say. Like, I'm just like, it's you can tell that they're all just kind of taking turns. It feels like a play. Like, I mean, you see a play and you enjoy the acting and stuff like that, but it's like when somebody's coming in and their cues, and it's like the banter back and forth. To me, it just feels almost like a little too scripted, but I know that it's scripted anyways, even though, because it's watching a show. I don't know how to define how I enjoy it, but I do. I love the reaction. I love her banter. I love when she comes in and she just starts rattling on and on and on about something. And the characters that they're introducing to interact with each other are just fantastic. And again, Alex Borstein is not getting enough credit, I feel like, because she is absolutely fantastic in this show. She's so funny, and it's just so simple. So I'm almost done with season 1. I can't wait to start season 2, and it's just, I can't get enough of the show. Can't get enough of it.
All right. Well, with that, it's going to wrap it up for our show this week. Real quick, for those wondering what happened to a spoiler effect this weekend, there was no spoiler effect this weekend, but next weekend, everything's going to kind of go back to normal with Captain Marvel coming. So there will be a spoiler effect for Captain Marvel. We will, of course, talk about that movie on this podcast as well. So look out for that next weekend. Big weekend coming up. So
this weekend,
basically we get to start summer already.
Yeah, thankfully.
Is Captain Marvel tracking high? Like, I haven't heard too much. They're pumping really good commercials and really putting that advertisement out there, but I haven't heard any like news about the sales already for tickets. So I'm kind of concerned.
I mean, I remember seeing some tracking numbers, but now it's been a little while, I think, since I saw those numbers. I don't remember how. I remember thinking they were actually higher than I expected.
Yeah. Don't quote me specifically on these numbers, but I do remember thinking that I saw something tracking between 80 and 120, somewhere around there. It's probably more between 100 and 120, but we'll see.
So yeah, look out for that next weekend. Other than that, as always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at @flicker_effect, and on YouTube at flickereffect, or youtube.com/flickereffect. With that, I'm David Lott.
Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.